We've struggled with them because they're a good team. Nico Estevez is a fantastic coach. A few of those players will go to World Cups, and deservedly so. They are a very good team, and the rivalry is alive and well. It's alive and well, and this will help fuel that and ignite that. And we know Houston's out there, but that was a very high level game tonight, and one that was packed with entertainment and quality. So I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our fans again. It'd be hard for me to find an atmosphere like that anywhere in the league. I've been in this league a long time, but that was an impressive atmosphere. The energy, the electricity in the air, and obviously the start for us was fantastic. We put them under immense pressure, drove the game, had real good discipline and coordination in how we wanted to defend, and then in real clarity how we could hurt them, and we did exactly that. I think it was one of our most dominant first halves, and the second half they threw a lot at us, and we were able to hang in there. And would have been nice to get the third. That third goal was important, whether they got it or us. But the guys grinded. It's a complete effort. As I said before the game, it was going to be needed in order to beat that team in that situation. But again, last week's experience helped us with this experience. I have no doubt about that. We got the nerves out last week, and the guys came with full force, full commitment, and a fantastic execution of the game plan tonight.
First of all, I would like to congratulate Austin FC, his staff, and his players to reach in the West Conference final. And secondly, I would like to to say that if we go back at the beginning of the year, after the disappointment of the last season, and every one of you, pretty sure, had a lot of doubts about what this team could do this year. What I want to say, I feel really, really proud of my players, my staff, the entire front office and the club for all the hard work that they've done throughout the year that put us in a position to be fighting for be in the Western Conference Final. We couldn't do it. We got short in the first half. We didn't show what we are able to do. In the second half, we were what we are, right? A brave team, an aggressive team, and we had the chances to change a little the score. We got short there in the chances that we had. But I want to send a positive message from the entire season that this team has done. We're disappointed today, but we learn to come stronger for the next season.
It's the Striker Texas MLS podcast. 3 Texas teams entered the season. 2 entered the playoffs. 1 plays on. That's Austin FC, which beat FC Dallas 2-1 at Q2 Stadium on Sunday. My name is John Arnold. I'm back in beautiful Dallas, Texas. After seeing Chris Bils down in Austin, Victor Araiza is in Houston for some insight. We'll talk about the Dynamo's coaching search in a bit. But first, Chris, we got business to attend to. You got Hollywood plans to make. You're going to be hobnobbing with celebrities. You're going to be covering Austin FC, but I'm sure you're going to also try and get your own star on the Walk of Fame. Chris, Austin plays on, and it's all because, I would say, not just because of the win, I'd say because of about 5 minutes, you could argue 45 minutes of soccer in the first half when Dallas uncharacteristically rough. And Austin did what they always do. In a lot of ways, this was kind of a typical Austin performance. They're through to the conference final. They're through to the Final Four. And they could be hosting MLS Cup. Chris, it's exciting times in Austin.
It is. It's exciting times. And I would go with the 45 minutes. I think it was one of the most, as Josh Wolf said there in that clip that we played before the show, it was one of the most dominant halves that I think that Austin FC's played, and certainly at home. And they've dug themselves a lot of holes this year. But in this case, they got the tactics right. They executed the game plan to almost perfection. And I think, John, one of the things that I've heard a lot of people talking about this game over the past couple of days and saying it was sort of a vintage Austin performance. I kind of pushed back on that. I think Austin went away, or they did some things differently that Nico Estevez and FC Dallas were not expecting. And, first of all, starting Moussa Djitté, and then the way that they played with Moussa Djitté, I think it was a tactical masterclass by Josh Wolf and his staff that I think that FC Dallas wasn't expecting. And it kind of set the tone for the first half and led to what we saw.
One of the reasons I picked FC Dallas to win the game was because I felt like Nico Estevez had outcoached Josh Wolf in their previous 2 meetings, even though they were
I agree
both
with that.
draws.
Yeah.
I think that Josh Wolf undoubtedly outcoached Estevez in the first half with some of those surprises, because I think Austin so often this season, I feel like I'm a broken record on this podcast where it's like, well, they're good, but they do these 3 things and that's about it. Like, that's kind of what they do. And in this, especially in the first half, they were willing to shift. They played differently. They made FC Dallas play in a way that FC Dallas didn't want to play at all, didn't look comfortable playing at all. We talk about kind of exploiting Austin FC's weaknesses, getting at the center backs and the press that FC Dallas had put on them, especially in that first game this year at Q2, just couldn't cope with the press that FC Dallas was putting on them. Austin said, you're not going to press us because we're not going to give you the chance. You want to have the ball with the center backs, that's fine, but you're not going to play through us. You're going to go over the top, and we're going to head that ball away because your front line is not big. And we're also going to say, you want to get the ball in possession to right back Ema Tamasi, that's fine. Hurt us, come at us, and Dallas couldn't, right? I mean, to me, those were the two things in the first half where you saw, and then once the first goal falls, I think the second kind of big key is the response, right? Look, we knew there were going to be multiple goals in this game. Both teams to score was a popular bet among our friends in Vegas and elsewhere where gambling is legal. I think like it was going to happen, but the thing was, what's your response? And FC Dallas's response was brutal. Not only is there the goal, Alan Velasco, poor touch in the center circle that Sebastian Driussi gets. No one puts a boot into him. No one takes a professional foul. Jose Martinez sort of tries to stop him, but when Driussi gets that run of steam, we know what he can do. Score a goal, make it 2-0. But just before that, Chris, I think was a key moment as well, because Driussi was in possession. He gets fouled by Facundo Quignon. Referee goes to his pocket and shows the yellow card. And not only was FC Dallas, I think, flustered, stressed, responding in a way that you don't want to respond to, and I think nervous, feeling the pressure, as Nico Estevez put it in a story that I wrote on The Striker yesterday. For the first time, he feels like all season. I agree. I've never seen the team look like they were under the pressure they were because of the atmosphere at Q2, because of the situation. Estevez himself, I've never seen him react like that, because he's usually cool, calm, and collected on the sideline. Sometimes he'll get in somebody's ear, fourth official, whatever. But compared to most managers, Nico Estevez was on the field arguing with the referee out of his technical area. And I think that response, I'm not saying Nico Estevez did anything wrong in that situation, but I think you saw the frustration from him, the frustration from the team, and the response from FC Dallas all wrong. And clearly Austin taking advantage of the frustration that they had caused, that I think was really the key to the game. As soon as that second goal went in, and could have been a third, you're like, this one's over. Austin's going to win.
Yeah, and I remember you pointing.
This time, Estevez got it right. Wolf got it right. I'm in that same boat with you, John. I think I had my doubts if Josh Wolf was going to get it better of Estevez. I think we've seen him be a little bit risky here, right, in the game against Salt Lake, but he cured that mistake with Pereira in the second half. I think here he went for Djitté. I think a lot of fans said that was the best lineup. I like to hear what Chris. I want to interject here because I want to hear what Chris has to say about that lineup. And truly, it's not like Austin hadn't been sold out before, but what was just different about this atmosphere that it did look like it threw FC Dallas off his boots a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll start with the thing John was just talking about, because he pointed that out. We were standing together, kind of overlooking the first half from the porch outside the press box, and we kind of got a feel for that atmosphere. And John pointed out, this might be the most animated I've ever seen Nico Estevez. All of a sudden, rather than getting the response that I think he was looking for, which is for his team to kind of respond. That was, it was the opposite. It was, all of a sudden Austin FC's up to 2-0 and, FC Dallas had no response to it. And to Victor's question, I think that with the lineup that you're talking about, with Moussa Djitté, starting from Maxi Ruti, I was a little bit, obviously I think everybody was surprised by that decision, but
go get the door, Chris. I think it's Felipe demanding.
That's Felipe Martin.
Felipe demanding respect.
I think Felipe's demanding
He's like,
respect,
I heard John Arnold wanted to talk to me on this show. Go get it, Chris. Victor and I will hold it down in the interim, because it was the most animated I've ever seen Nico Estevez. And we talk about him as a tactician. I think he gets it right in the second half with some big risks. He puts Franco Jara in for 45 minutes. You say, well, your designated player forward shouldn't be a risk, but it was. But Franco Jara does stretch Austin FC, does put more pressure on the center backs that we'd seen sort of get flustered all year. And Estevez eventually throws the kitchen sink. He told me after the game that Hader Obrian, a winger, coming in at right back was kind of forced by a bit of a knock. Marco Farfan couldn't go anymore. FC Dallas finds one goal, but I think credit to an Austin back line. And again, credit to Wolf for making the substitutions, for taking the air out of the ball, having the response to the FC Dallas goal that FC Dallas should have had to the Austin goal, because Austin did try and keep possession, did try and slow things down, and ultimately were able to lean on their strengths, even though they didn't play in the typical way they're used to playing. You see them score on the set piece. You see Driussi find the back of the net, have an amazing play. It's funny because we're saying, oh, well, Austin shifted, which is something they don't usually do. But then once they shifted, they were able to play to their strengths. Ari Silva is hanging out in the chat. He said, Harley looked dangerous. Will he be back next season for FCD? Well, he's under contract for the first 6 months. So maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him bought out. We're going to hear from some of the FC Dallas players tomorrow at Locker Room Cleanout or Locker Cleanout. I think it's whatever it's called. Last media availability of the year as the guys go their separate ways. But Victor, real quick, just kind of on Austin. This is a team, like I said, that eventually leans on their strengths. They're going to have to do that again against LAFC and potentially an MLS Cup. But I think it's a huge boost that they can show this tactical flexibility that maybe we were wondering if they really had.
No, I mean, they're a really well-built team, right? And I think, we were talking about it in all the places here. We have the conversation on the striker, on the spaces on Twitter, on this podcast. Driussi's obviously the MVP. We know he's in form. We know he has the quality. Even whether he shows up or whether he even if he shows up at half gas, right? In some of his worst moments this season, he still provided a very solid performance for Austin FC. But somebody else had to kind of show up, and it was in this game. It was Djitté, right? The guy who got the start. It did come off a set piece, but somebody else had to kind of help carry the load here a little bit, and then then it turned. Driussi turns to be like a plus, right? I mean, he gives you that great goal, kind of puts it away. I know. I think Wolf was talking about he still wanted to get at that third one. They didn't get it, but I mean, they're just rolling right now, man. I mean, I don't know that there's anything FC Dallas had in its arsenal to be able to beat them. I talked about it. Do what brought you, right? And I think that's what Estevez did. Obviously, Jara adds experience. He brings something different.
I think like in the second half, the Jara substitution, the Paxton Pomykal coming on, if he's fully fit for 90 minutes, you do wonder, does that change anything, especially with the game plan of how you keep Driussi?
What should he have started? I mean, even if it's just 45.
Because here's the thing, I haven't been able to put this out on the striker yet, but hopefully will. He told me after the game, his hamstring, he felt good, but he only trained one day. And then he said after he sent that cross that ends up leading to the Velasco goal, he told me, unfortunately, he felt a twinge. And because I had essentially asked him, hey, if this isn't a playoff game, are you playing at all? And he didn't want to, make an excuse. Right. He said, I was ready to play. I wanted to play, but it seems like, I don't, if you put him in for the start, I don't think he would have even made it to halftime potentially. So I think like the point I'm trying to make about the modifications is those were forced, and credit to Estevez, because I think sometimes we do see managers kind of keeping something in the tank and it's like, what are you doing? This is the playoffs. Just toss guys in there. He does with Hader Obrian coming on, with Pomykal coming in, switching out, even to Moussa when he was struggling. But I think in the first half, the way that Austin kept Jesus Ferreira from seeing the ball, the way that they kept Alan Velasco from getting in a one-on-one situation, they limited what Dallas does best. Dallas didn't limit what Austin does best, period. Chris, as you look toward the LAFC game now, of course, we're going to have all sorts of preview content on the striker. We're going to have Twitter Spaces. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a cheeky pod in there. But looking forward to the next game, is it a Moussa Djitté situation starting once again? Did he do enough against FC Dallas that he has to start in this next game? Or do you say LAFC is different enough from FC Dallas that you go back to a guy like Maxi Rudy? What's the play?
It all depends on the game plan, because that's what I was getting ready to say before. Guys, that was my laminator. Sorry, I had to get some things laminated. So.
It's a busy time for Austin laminators. They already got the cool cocktail bar menus. Now they're doing MLS.com predictions. Unbelievable.
Yeah, but what I was gonna say about Moussa Djitté is it was not a like for like move. Like these guys are very different, and I think that playing Moussa Djitté in that spot allowed Austin FC to sit in, with those two central midfielders and still be able to break out when they did get the ball. There was a lot of times when they were looking, long from the fullbacks just for that outlet. I thought Moussa Djitté did a really good job of being physical and kind of holding play up when he needed to, allowing Driussi to get forward and still making those runs, out in front of Driussi that were threatening enough that, obviously opened the space for the second goal. And for me, my big question mark heading into this game against LAFC is which team does Josh Wolf want to put out? Does he want to play, sort of a similar thing? Because I think they can do something similar against LAFC that they did against Dallas. I think the midfielders are maybe a little bit better, and it might not, work quite as well.
LAFC's midfield,
And so
I think, is way stronger than the FC Dallas
exactly
midfield without Baxter Bamako. And the central midfield, we talk Ilie versus Quignon,
And so do you want to go, play 90 minutes kind of hunkered in a little bit? Not that Austin FC played in a complete bunker. I think they were able to break out. Yeah, they were able to obviously attack FC Dallas. And that's the worry that I think you'd have playing with Moussa Djitté against LAFC is that all of a sudden you play a little deeper and then you get stuck deeper because LAFC's got the ability to play with the ball. And so
and I think
what I'm getting to with Maxi Urruti, what he does is he stretches, the game out. He can put pressure on that back line. And that's what Austin FC did the last time that, that they played against LAFC at home, where they were, a little bit more compact, but they still were, were pressing out on the wings, especially. And, I think that it's just going to be interesting to see. And I think we'll know as soon as the lineup goes out exactly how Austin FC wants to play because they've kind of shown both of these ways. The most encouraging thing is that now we know that Josh Wolf is flexible enough. And, this reminds me a little bit of, not to go back too far, but, Greg Berhalter, we had this question about him in his first deep playoff run with the Columbus Crew. And they had a similar game against the New York Red Bulls where they sort of just sat back and, tried to let the Red Bulls have the ball, and they weren't expecting it at all. And I think this was Josh Wolf's moment of that, where we were like, okay, now they have multiple ways to play. And now if you're LAFC, you have to wonder which Austin FC you're going to get, coming into Baker California Stadium next week. And so it's hard for me to say which one I would start because it's more to do with which way does Josh Wolf want to play. And, it's going to be interesting to see how they line up against LAFC.
A wishy-washy answer from Chris Bill. Nah, I'm just kidding. I think the other element is that Austin FC, of course, has had LAFC's number this year. As we've talked about, they won that famous game at Q2, and Maxi Urruti had 2 goals in that and was pretty fantastic. So, exactly. How much do you put in that?
That's what I think. I think you go in and you play your game against LAFC, and you let Maxi and Driussi do what they've been doing all season, and you see where it carries you. And I think Austin FC knows and has the confidence that they can go in. I think that it would give them even more confidence for Josh Wolf to say, hey, last week we did what we had to do. This week we're going to be ourselves and we're going to go in and we're going to smash LAFC. That's what I would think that Josh Wolf is going to do, but he's thrown me off with a couple of decisions.
Now I'm thrown off because Victor just put a graphic up on our thing, which looks really nice on YouTube and Twitter, but it said that the game would start at 2:28 p.m. Central Time. Oh, there we go. 12:18 because it said 2:28 Central.
I had to fix that before we laminated.
I don't think that's right. Yeah, perfect. 2:18 Sunday, October 30th. Again, Chris Bills has all
these daylight savings things are getting more complicated.
We thought that bill in the Senate was going to make things easier, and instead we're all just more confused. Plus the MLS TV deal. Good night. Are we ever going to figure out when a game of soccer actually starts? Chris Bills will have all your coverage on the strike. If you're not already subscribed, you can get all of his coverage for free of this weekend and for potential MLS Cup. And actually Ben Virgin's coverage of MLS Cup for the LAFC side. So you're going to have somebody in LAFC in the MLS Cup, but you can get a 30-day free trial. So no matter what happens, you're going to get all sorts of goodness on the striker. If you sign up now, you can do that. Am I still supposed to be doing an ad read?
Oh yeah. We gotta get that in.
All right, you guys vamp while let's get this listener comment from Ari's up there so I could pretend that I meant to do this and find the script. Victor, you want to read that?
Yeah, Ari's. I agree with. I agree with Ari's. He says Wolf showed some real growth in being flexible and changing his tactics, and that's what we were just talking about. Go check out my piece on the striker. I talked to Danny Pereira after the match. Was able to pull him aside, and I think it was kind of telling how much belief Austin FC had in when they presented this. He said Dallas is a team that kind of has the same style as us. We like to have the ball, and we've seen a couple of their games where they kind of get desperate when they have the ball too much, and when teams sit down, just like how teams sit with us, it just puts stress on them. And I think that that worked so well in the game planning because Austin FC has seen that certainly over the last couple of months. They've been frustrated by teams having those tactics against them, so they kind of turned the tables on FC Dallas. And it was fun to talk to Denny Pereira about that. So go check that piece out. Lots of good quotes from him and Josh Wolf on what Austin FC was able to pull off.
Yeah. By the way, Wolf, go ahead, John.
I was going to say that Ari said that Wolf showed real growth. Are you showing real growth? Do you feel like a wolf man? Well, support for the Striker MLS podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join more than 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. That's right, you, the Striker Texas MLS podcast listener. It's 20% off plus free worldwide shipping. You test them, Papua New Guinea listeners. Free worldwide shipping with the code MLS at manscaped.com. Go to Manscaped, type in the code MLS. It'll give you a 20% discount plus free worldwide shipping. That Performance Package 4.0 is pretty crazy. You got the Lawnmower 4.0, which I believe Phil West says does the business. That's your main utility there. You also got the Lawnmower 4.0. That's what I was just talking about. You've got the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, some boxer briefs, and a travel bag that'll make you be able to take it on the road. 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. Code MLS. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
It's sort of a double pivot. If I were going to assign roles to the Austin FC midfield, I would say that Alex Ring's more of a lawnmower and Denny Pereira is more of a weed whacker. They both get the job done in different styles.
Yeah, absolutely. Who's the Crop Preserver ball deodorant? Manscaped.com, code MLS. Nope. Let's talk about the Houston Dynamo coaching situation. It's 2 candidates being reported. The Athletic reported that Ben Olsen is in serious discussions, former DC United head coach, to become the next manager of the Houston Dynamo, with Tom Bogart from MLS adding that Hugo Perez, the El Salvador national team manager, has been interviewed as well. Victor, I actually don't know what you're going to say now, but you seem to be spicy about this when we put it in the rundown. What's your take? Ben Olsen, Perez, someone else? Who should be the next manager of the Dynamo?
Yeah, I think also reported Juan Carlos Osorio was reached out and talks in advance, according to Tom Bogart. So obviously he's with ESPN currently for the World Cup, and that's, but I do wonder why talks didn't advance, right? But overall, my thing is, I've talked about this, and we'll continue to talk about it at, further in length on thestriker.com. But this is a decisive offseason for the Houston Dynamo. I mean, this is maybe the most important offseason in a long, long time. And, it's a good opportunity to right a lot of wrongs from the past. But a move like this, I'm sorry, this decision needs to be a home run. It needs to be a guy that's going to turn this team around. It needs to be a for sure thing. Ben Olsen's not a for sure thing. It's a waste of time to interview him, to have him be here in person. I mean, this is not the direction that the club should be going. And I think if you're a fan of this team, you got to be now more worried about the way the situation is being handled by the club, whether it be the owner, whether it be the GM, because I think, it's nothing against Ben Olsen personally, but I just think, again, you got to go for a more experienced candidate. You got to stop screwing around with some of these guys.
I mean, he has experience in MLS. He's won trophies in MLS.
He's won an Open Cup.
He's won an Open Cup.
10 years. It was a disappointing time at DC United. I mean, he couldn't get anything done. He had Wayne Rooney and Luciano Acosta. He kept going one and done in the playoffs. I mean, and besides, Pat Onstad was supposed to be something different, right? He wasn't supposed to be the prior regime where everybody's just hiring their friends. So what is he doing? Giving Ben Olsen the time of day. I mean, no, man. These are the kind of things that they need to change already. They need to move along and just get away from this way of doing business. And if they're not the guy for the job, then you know what? Submit your resignation. Say, you know what? I can't do it. This is too much of a fix. I mean, no, it just
all right.
It's amazing that we're still going down this road here in Houston. I mean, you guys you completed the turnaround. You got local guys in there. Which, by the way, where the hell are the Houstonians in the building here at the Houston Dynamo? Where are the soccer people still here at the Houston Dynamo? No, I mean this is a very. I continue to say it, and especially now with a new owner, it's supposed to be a new GM. I just, where's the difference?
You don't want Ben Olsen because he disappointed or fell flat, especially with some kind of big assets in DC. What about Hugo Perez? What about even a guy he's not been reported, like Caleb Porter, right? Like, would you say that that's the right direction, or does it need to be someone who?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, those guys have at least won something, right? I mean, we're in the sense of Hugo Perez. I mean, I think it's a little differently, right? Because you're taking into account what he's done with the El Salvador national team, and you're digging in a little deeper than just results, right? With Caleb Porter, at least he has an MLS Cup, right? Or just, I mean, he has something to back him. That's it. That's all I'm saying. This fixation on having to have a guy with MLS experience just for the sake of having a guy that has coached in MLS. I mean, that shouldn't be the only qualifying factor. There's a world of coaches, experienced coaches, guys that can win, that you can bring into this team and turn it around and change the culture. But it doesn't seem like the culture wants to be changed here in Houston. I mean, from people that are there. There's some cuts going around. There are some people getting fired. But I mean, if this is the way business is still going to continue, I mean, there needs to be more people getting fired in that building. There needs to be a bigger change, and Ted Siegel needs to take a bigger stranglehold of his club. That may be a disadvantage of not being here locally. Whereas, again, in Austin, Precourt lives in Austin, right? I believe so. Dan Hunt lives in Dallas, right, or at least in the Frisco area. Ted Siegel's far away in New York. He needs better local eyes on this project because, I mean, I think if these are the kind of moves that are still happening, this is getting out of hand, man.
I hear you. I think to get fired in the building, you want them to fire themselves, which I have to say is a bit unconventional. But I hear what you're saying, and I definitely think that.
No, I'm just saying. Look, if Pat Onstad loves the Houston Dynamo like he says he does, right? And if he's not, up to the challenge, then based on that love for the club, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I definitely think like that, hey, let's get maybe a fresh perspective or someone who has, just can new eyes can bring. I think the academy, man, whenever I look at the Dynamo from a 40,000 foot view or whatever planes fly at, I'm not a pilot, thank God. To me, I'm like, man, how is Houston as big as Uruguay and has never produced a top MLS talent? And Dallas is a little smaller population, about the same, right? And Dallas has produced literally dozens. It doesn't make any sense. And I think that, the coach is only one part of that, but it's certainly an element where you say, maybe the manager is part of the issue. And I think if you're Ted Siegel looking, that's an area where you're probably going to need to kind of freshen things. It's not going to be immediate first team success to invest in the academy, but I think that's another important thing for Houston to keep fostering. That's why a guy to me, certain guys, Osorio, they are concerned about the academy. They are concerned about youth development. They do have that history. I wonder if someone like that could be the right candidate for the Dynamo. Bils, you had a few thoughts while Victor was chatting it up.
Yeah, no, I hear the frustration from Victor, and I totally side with the sentiment of you don't want these retread MLS coaches that are coming from clubs and situations that kind of reflect exactly what the Dynamo is trying to get over. And so, I think Ben Olsen would be a good I think Ben Olsen would be a good candidate for a lot of jobs, maybe, but I don't think that's what's going to light the fire in the market. Right. That's not what's going to
and the market is a good
fire
point,
with-
because even Hugo
Right.
Perez, right? You say he brings in that Salvadoran community that is very strong in Houston,
Mhm.
that is known in the soccer community in Houston. I think that certain managers look like Tab was bilingual, right? So like I'm not saying, oh, like if you have a bilingual manager, things will work, you'll win on the field and it'll connect in the off-field sense. I just think that like when I think of Houston, I do think of someone with that profile, with an you don't have to be Central American or South American, but maybe an understanding of soccer in Latin America, maybe history working there, and maybe the ability to communicate with some of those fans directly.
Yeah, no, and I mean, look, man, we can go deep into this. Like,
I'm sure we will.
You
The
mentioned briefly
off-season's
the
long.
academy. That whole thing's a mess. I mean, we can go on and on and on about James Clarkson, how he never got fired, how he kept getting left around in the organization. Paul Holliker. Things have to change, right? I mean, that's another situation. That's my point. Like the whole direction of this club. It's not just the first team. It's also, I mean, there's still things with the dash that you can point to. There's still things in the academy that you can point to. And if this is the direction that things are still kind of heading, I mean, again, I can't go completely into all of this stuff on the striker.com, because there are some stuff that obviously I get off the record, but Jesus, some of the way these contracts are made sometimes, I mean, just Pat Onstad was supposed to be the change. That's all I'm saying. And that's why maybe it's unfair to put it all on him, but he's also being allowed.
It takes time,
he's allowing
man.
this interview
It's
to happen.
clearly.
I think that's the thing. Is like
clearly,
if Ted
the decision that they made.
If Ted Siegel signals with his hire, yeah, I'm good with kind of like mediocre MLS results, then I think, yeah, like maybe you're very concerned. I think he needs to show direction. He needs to show intent, and maybe he hires Ben Olsen and then comes down and gives a press conference and says, this is my rationale. And you say, yeah, actually that makes sense. But I can understand why Victor's saying, ooh, don't know.
I think it's a waste of time. I think you need to go with a proven commodity. You need to change this thing. As much as you can. Ted Siegel, I've spoken to him about, the financial situation. He seems to be able to want to back, at least publicly, back a candidate. It's not a money issue.
He seems committed to the team.
But even just the Herrera signing, right? I mean, Wayne Gretzky, that's what we're calling it. I mean, if I'm Ted Siegel, I might have been sold a wrong bag of goods, right? That aren't coming to fruition here. Because Hector Herrera, hey, he didn't make the top 25, and maybe he'll make it next year, but he didn't make the top 25 top selling shirts. He hasn't been exactly a marketing home run either, right? So, I mean, those are just the things. I mean, it's obviously you pile this on with the Nagamura hire that, ends up getting, the plug gets pulled in, 8 months later. Some of these players, you already knew what they were. They didn't get a shot, or they got another shot when they didn't need to, right? You could have already started turning over this roster instead of waiting, losing this season essentially, as far as losing time. And, here we are, another coaching search. And I just think it's a vital time. It's a vital off season. It's a very important one that can make all the difference, but it could make all the difference in the wrong way also if the wrong decisions are made. And I think fans at this point need to speak up about their club, because it doesn't seem like it's going in the right direction.
I'm stunned.
Again, we'll go more in depth on the website.
All right. I'm stunned we went this in depth on the podcast, because last week I promised less Dynamo talk than we had last week. And unfortunately, I've broken my promise to you, the Striker Texas MLS.
When Victor gets
podcast.
fired up, you just got to let him go.
Sometimes you got to stand
Hexagon,
back and watch
we'll go deeper in there. We have more time.
All right. Well, if you're a Dynamo fan, check out Inside the Hexagon. If you're a soccer fan at all, check out thestriker.com. Chris Bils, LA, baby. You got your shades? You got your outfits planned already? A little early.
Oh, I'm set. I just gotta, I'm excited to see Ben. I'm excited to I'm mostly excited just to get back to the bank and see what this game's got in store. I think that's what it's all about at this point. Is is MLS Cup coming back here? Is it going to be in Philly, or is LA going to take it and be able to hold it down? So I'm just
or is it
excited to see how this plays out.
Exactly. That'd be something else. Of course, we'll have it all covered on The Striker. Check it out, thestriker.com, 30-day free trial, or just keep your current subscription going. We love you. Thanks. Talk to you next week. Take care.